Brian White. We missed again. We missed out.
Uh-oh, what'd we do this time?
They didn't call me. Maybe they called you. Maybe you were the one that funded it.
Uh-oh, funded
Somebody
what?
came up with $1 billion for Lucid.
Ah, wait, as expected, as we predicted would happen? Yes, that is correct. Lucid got their extra billion they needed. The Saudi PIF now owns 67% of the company, 67, 68. And of course, the Lucid shareholders are giddy. This is so exciting. Look, the stock went up, right? Because you ding dongs keep buying more of it, thinking that this is it. And maybe it is. Maybe this is it. But I don't think $1 billion is enough to ramp gravity, let alone the mass market car. And let's say you do ramp gravity. So, well, yeah, but Brian, the factory's already been built. Yes, the building has been built.
Right.
But one thing we know from flyovers is a building is not a factory. A building is a building. And if we've watched any of the drone flights out of Texas, we've seen for the last 2 years, nonstop parade of equipment being packed in. Now we see, go back and look at the footage of Lucid. There's not much equipment going into that building. It still requires the expensive part. Good for you. You've purchased a computer case. Now you need the computer. And that's the expensive part. That's what does all the work. Yes, you do need the case, but you need the rest of it too. So the Saudis have put in more money. This is pocket change to them. They make this much money in a day. It's no big deal. What they need is to, not the existing shareholders are being diluted. If this billion went to actually creating $1 billion of value, it'd be a great deal. When Tesla raised $5 billion in capital and then $5 billion more 2 years ago, it was seen as a good thing because we knew what the money would be spent on. And frankly, the money hasn't been spent on anything. 10 billion is more than they've had, is less than they've had in cash on hand. So that money is just sitting there for a rainy day. We're okay with that. In the case of Lucid, that billion is going to evaporate into capacity, perhaps, but $1 billion is not enough to build the factory that will, the equipment to build the gravity. And the gravity, their SUV, is not going to save the company. It's going to be competing in a very crowded space. So good luck. I'm still hoping they survive. And as a reminder, those of us paying attention were not predicting they would be bankrupt today. We were predicting another fundraiser would be coming, which would result in massive dilution, and it has.
And we predicted it would come from the Saudis. And
of course.
And Brian, this is why I have you on, because you talked me down off the ledge. I was so sad I'd missed the opportunity, but now I can see that maybe the opportunity wasn't that fantastic after all. Well, no. So Brian, let's go around the world. Okay. This is
I'm ready.
Things I like to do with you, besides just chat, of course. I don't know where that could have gone. Anyway, sales seem pretty good in Europe. Obviously, there's some issues surrounding the factory. We got union problems. We got eco-terrorists. We've got people living in tree houses, but production seems to be okay. What have you heard in terms of, I saw some sales numbers, but what have you heard? Is that production, is that 5,000, 6,000 a week? What are we doing? What's happening with production in Berlin?
Well, I'm not sure what the latest number is, but it's good. There's been nothing material that's impacting production or deliveries in Europe. We do know that it is the best-selling car in Norway. We know that Sweden has still the strike ongoing. There's literally dozens of people upset about it, but the buyers are not. And they had been having trouble getting the license plates delivered because of a sympathy strike from the post office. They found a way to get the license plates by having them just shipped to a different post office. So that's weird. The eco people, they've got no public support. They've got very little in terms of public support because they took down the power for a whole city with like nursing homes in it. Nursing homes went without power because you guys are mad that Tesla's using a fraction of the water of the alfalfa farm. Guys, this is not how you go about enacting change. And as a result, Tesla did come back and say, look, we found a way to build the same amount of capacity and leave more trees up along the far eastern edge of the property. Does that make you happy? So anyone paying attention would notice that Tesla is being more than generous, meeting them more than halfway, and things are looking good there. The big kicker is still interest rates remain high. When they come back down, I think we'll see sales improve even further, and we'll wait for that. But in the meantime, things are going pretty good.
So we had these rumors, these suggestions, these ideas that maybe the Model 3 Plus would get made in Berlin. Has anything developed in that department?
We haven't seen anything that would lead us to conclude that that's going to happen. Right now, I don't see a need for it to happen. They have enough capacity in Shanghai. All it would do is result in a slightly lower, potentially a lower cost, because you skip the shipping, you skip the modest import tax, but those savings are probably not enough to justify building out a whole line. They could, it wouldn't be the end of the world. We know when they were ramping the Model Y, they took some Model 3 capacity down to make room for it. And it wasn't an earth-shattering change in terms of cost or complication. So it's something they could do, but I haven't seen any moves yet that would lead me to conclude that that is underway.
So this morning, the breaking news for Berlin, and we don't know if it's true or not, but it apparently from a very good source, was that the Gen 3 vehicle might start in Berlin instead of in Austin. What did you think about that breaking news?
My question would be how, because the space in which they would build it has not yet been constructed, but we can see the capacity for it to be built in Texas already in place. They do have space inside that's not yet accounted for, that's not yet spoken for. And because of the unboxed method, it wouldn't require a vast amount of space to begin pilot production. But my question would be why? What's the benefit?
Yeah, well, I guess the article's theory was that the Gen 3 would be extremely popular in Europe compared to the United States because they like the smaller cars. And of course, their evidence was that there were suppliers that were being asked to quote for June of next year.
Well, yeah, so that would be almost concurrent with Texas. So the supplier thing, I do put a lot more weight in that because it's a lot easier to get suppliers to talk than anyone at Tesla.
Mhm.
And I have found supplier rumors to be the most reliable. Um, uh, I did get a chance to Zoom with Bob from Bob's Bibs and Bob's last week.
Nice.
It was difficult because I was on the road, but I did manage to get him on the phone and ask a bunch of questions. But compact questions, he had not seen anything about it in the US yet. Doesn't mean parts aren't being ordered, just not ordered from him. So there are, yeah, the part supplier rumors are the best ones. But June of next year for early parts seems reasonable.
Yeah, this was this was Reuters, by the way. It was so Reuters was the source. The article that I saw was not a Reuters article, but they were quoting Reuters. And Reuters was saying they had 4 sources and that the early production was at 10,000 per month.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I have real deep problems with Reuters. They're the ones who said Giga Mexico City is definitely happening and they're going to fly cars out from the airport, which is the most ludicrous thing. Any editor looking at that should have said, stop. This is nonsense. But they ran with it and everybody repeated it. So the fact that it's Reuters makes it less credible to me. And 4 sources, I don't know, man. I know a lot of suppliers and I've never had 4 sources on a rumor.
Wow. So speaking of ludicrous, I mean, you brought it up.
I
Let's go to
did.
Austin. Let's go to Austin. There were some sightings of some covered Model 3s down in Austin, which raised my old question again about whether maybe they're going to make some Model 3s in Austin and maybe it'll be the ludicrous. What do you think?
It is not a crazy theory, really. We know that 3 and Y have a lot of parts in common. We know that Texas has more capacity. They could take the existing one of the Model Y lines and push it to 24 hours and convert the other one to a Model 3 line. And they've got some cost issues on the Model 3 that can't be addressed in Fremont. If the Model 3s coming out of Texas are using US built batteries and mega castings, and then are on the new, the new refresh design, which has some inherent cost savings. There's no reason they couldn't be made a bit cheaper in Texas than in Fremont. Also, labor is probably cheaper in Texas than Fremont. And there are other favorable tax consequences from Texas, as I understand. I don't know what they are. So it would not be too difficult to do that. And we know that Model Y, they've got enough Model Ys.
Yes.
What they don't have is enough Model 3s at the price that makes them move, because without that federal incentive, it costs more than a Y. So some models of Model 3 are more expensive than some models of Model Y. It's makes it a hard car to sell.
Yes. So Troy Testlake says that the Cybertruck is now at 400 a week. Does that line up with the numbers that you would have on Austin?
Well, I haven't looked at Troy's methodology. I've looked at it in the past, and I've found some critical flaws in it that I've disagreed with, but you have to be gentle when disagreeing with Troy, or he will block you. And I'd prefer not to be blocked. So I would say that is on the low end of the estimate. I would say it's more like 700.
Wow.
Is the current production rate is my estimate.
Wow. Okay. So that means that they could have on the order of you're looking at 3,000 a month, 2,800 a month, 3,000 a month. So could be 12,000 in the second quarter.
In the second quarter, for sure. I was looking at it looks like there was something like 9,000 DeLoreans made. I think in Q2, if that number is correct, 9,000, and then in Q2, we will see Cybertruck surpass DeLorean's lifetime production numbers. I could have been misreading it. It could have been 9,000 a year, but in any case, this year, Cybertruck will pass DeLorean's all-time production numbers.
Okay. So any updates out of Austin on the 4680 other than the one we saw? I mean, we know that we had the one last week, but 1,000 trucks per week. But anything new since then?
No, nothing since last week when we saw that they had hired a semi-chip manufacturing expert to help with the 4680 line. That's the last I heard. So that's it on that.
Okay, all right. If we go over to Shanghai, had rumors from Bloomberg that there would be a 1.5 days of cutback. Speaking of people that we don't trust, Bloomberg. Okay, anyway, so going from 6 days to 6.5 days to 5 days per week of production. Anything to confirm that? Anything to deny that? Anything that would, anyway.
It is, again, as far as I can tell, a single source rumor. And you know how I feel about those. So it's a very popular rumor, though, and it's possible. The disconnect I see is I don't understand why they would need to. Surely there are export markets that could handle those kind of numbers. That is kind of a big shift. In terms of impacting the quarter, I'm not convinced it will, because it's happening so late in the quarter, and a lot of deliveries, a lot of production made today is not going to hit this quarter. It would be deliveries in next quarter. Right. So I haven't seen confirmation, but I don't have sources that could confirm it. And again, single source rumors, not my jam.
Okay. And then
but in Shanghai,
yes.
we do have the big news. Apparently, Megafactory Shanghai has broken ground.
Oh.
So that is something that was reported today by Wuwa, the drone pilot in Shanghai. He went out to the site where it is believed that they will be building it, and construction trailers are there, and a little tiny bit of groundwork has been done. I didn't have time to watch it yet, but it looks like something's going on.
All right. Well, speaking of groundwork, then we'll switch all the way to Mexico. Has there been any groundwork in Mexico?
No. Thank you for asking. No, we're still waiting for that big groundbreaking 3 weeks ago. That was it Reuters on that one too, where they said groundbreaking on the 2nd or whatever the date was that they got wrong, as they do. Yes. I don't remember who that was, but it was a big one. Yeah. And everybody was repeating the single source.
Right. Reno rumor that Semi might go back into limited production while waiting for the new facility to get going. Any thoughts on that one?
It would make sense if they've got, if it's possible that we can get 4680 ramped to a point in Texas where it can handle the Cybertruck and some Model Y and something other than just the Cybertruck. And if battery production can outpace the Cybertruck production, that means we've got some 2170s out of Nevada on hand to play with. Not enough probably to switch the Model 3 out of Fremont back over to 2170, but certainly enough to make a few semis. They've got a semi pilot line that they had been producing the original ones on. They could continue to produce them if the cost has reached a point where where the inefficiencies of that line would still make it financially viable to do so. And for that matter, they could just be building them to use them in-house. We know Tesla does use the Tesla Semi to haul supplies between Reno and Fremont. There are, I think, 8 trucks a day that run that route. Maybe they want to expand it. Maybe they want to add additional routes. I don't know. So they could be doing that. It's very possible. And we have seen them continuing earthworks at the Reno site, at that area closer to the public road where Zangler is able to fly without getting cited for trespassing.
Well, they did have some additional rumors last week, might have been him as well, but the idea was that Tesla might be looking at a shorter range truck for initial production because there is a bigger market. The biggest market of all is for this, maybe 250 to 300 mile per day truck that always goes back to its original location for charging. This is a rumor, I guess, that he has picked up on or something, and that this is something they could do on the pilot line quite easily.
So the truck, the frame, everything would be the same except the battery pack.
Right.
And by cutting the battery by half or even more than half, you pick up a whole lot of extra weight you can haul because you've got a road limit of 82,000 pounds for the tractor and the trailer. And yes, right now, Kenworth and others are selling a whole lot of trucks, electric trucks with a range of 150.
150.
That 150. Yes, because think about it, in town use at 60 miles an hour, you've got, depending how, that works for a lot of routes. When my dad was driving a truck, he drove all over town, picking up parts, dropping off parts, and never broke 200 in a day.
Sure.
Because it's all in town. It's all stop, go to a depot, stop, come back, and make a big loop out of it. So that was, one way they did it. But those trucks are still selling. The reason people aren't buying those in big numbers is because they're eye-wateringly expensive. And I think, considering Tesla's 500-mile truck is probably priced the same as Kenworth's 150-mile truck, if Tesla made a 150, 250-mile truck, it would be substantially cheaper and better. I don't know if you saw, but Tesla owner Silicon Valley held an event yesterday where a Tesla Semi showed up for it, and they got to look under the hood.
Yeah.
And what we saw was, despite it having no real front end to speak of, there was still space in there. There was still ample space inside, like it just all fit. And it was very clean, very neatly engineered. And if you compare that to a Kenworth or a Freightliner or the e-Cascadia, you look under the hood, and that place where that giant diesel engine used to be is jam full of stuff, of components, of heat exchange, of all kinds. It's a mess. And you wonder, could they miniaturize and streamline to the point where it would fit like it does with a Tesla Semi? And apparently the answer is not yet. And why bother? We're using the same truck anyway. So I don't know what the heck they're doing, but I think Tesla could make could have a lot of sales for a shorter range truck if they made one. If they made a truck with 100 miles of range, there would still be buyers. It just has to make sense for the price and the application.
Sure. And then, speaking of batteries and range, CATL had a big article out this morning. It looked like they might have been the ones that PR'd it. And this was that, in terms of the Reno facility that they're helping Tesla install. So they're installing their equipment their used equipment up at Reno. They'll teach Tesla how to use it, and then they'll go away. And the suggestion this morning was that this might be the long range, or not the long range, I'm sorry, the fast charge. I guess that would be the magnesium version of the battery.
Okay, so it could be, yeah, the LMFP,
Right.
which I found out doesn't stand for lick my. No, it doesn't do that. So it is lithium, manganese, iron, phosphorus. So, or phosphate. So what I don't know, I haven't seen evidence of where the equipment is going or who's going to be running it. All I've seen is rumors without sources, and until we know what it actually is and where it's actually going, I don't imagine Panasonic would want CATL's engineering department inside their battery factory. So that part raises questions to me. But yeah, I don't know how you address that part. But it's and I don't know if these pieces of equipment are limited in use to the LMFP or LFP lines. Maybe they could be used for NMC lines as well. So there's a lot of questions there I haven't been able to find answers to. And the people who would know the answers are very few. And I don't know who they are.
So these are questions we need to ask at the first quarterly meeting after the earnings report. Okay, so overall, if we take a look at the whole world now, there's a bunch of reporting, AJ and Troy and others. They're talking about 417,000 or fewer total vehicles delivered for Q1. You've been like really, really on these numbers. You've been like number one a couple of times, I think, in predicting the quarterly numbers. Have you put your number together yet? And or what do you think about the 417 or less?
The or less strikes me as flat wrong.
Okay.
Without cracking open my spreadsheet, I'm just going to say that the 417, I'm taking the over.
Okay. All right. Okay. There you go. I'd like to see it be over. Do you think it will be much over?
To be determined.
To be determined.
We do have, the biggest producer is China. If they really did scale back by a day and a half of shifts, that will have an impact. But we already know awfully good numbers for the first 2 months of the quarter. So the third month is the real big variable. And some of the rumors I've seen that would suggest the numbers would be lower don't add up to me. And especially, I haven't seen too many people with predictions on the Cybertruck production that make sense to me. Everyone seems to still be of the belief that we're at, 50 a day, and 50 a day is too low. That number does not make sense. So
there's been at least 50 a day just going to the top, rap artists and whatnot.
Well, and we've seen, we'll see 150 a day on the lot. Some days we've seen 350, and they say, right, but these aren't all shipping out.
Right.
No, but some of them are. I mean, to think that less than half of them are shipping out on a given day doesn't add up to me. That doesn't track. And they say, well, we're not seeing the numbers showing up in terms of sales and delivery. Almost every service center, sales and or service center, has one on display right now. Those aren't being sold. Those will not show up as sales. No. It's possible that in the next few days, people get a phone call and say, hey, do you want this one? And they just blow a bunch of them out. Yeah. But you got to figure, I had a chance to talk with a few production experts in Fremont last week. And I told them, what I want to know is, what is the actual cost to build it right now? And the number we came up with was, for the $100,000 model, probably costs $80,000 to build.
Oh, wow.
So that's $20,000 in profit per unit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And if we're talking 100 units a day, I mean, I don't know how good your math is, but
that's good money.
That adds up real quick,
Yes.
$2 million a day in margin. That's pretty good.
That'd be a good deal. Yes, we would all be happy to see a $20,000 margin per Cybertruck. That would be excellent. All right. Well, I think that covers all of the world. I didn't bring up Fremont because I didn't know if there was anything I couldn't think of anything very big that was happening at Fremont.
No new news apart from the fact that I had a chance to tour it last week.
Right,
If you
right.
guys are interested in seeing that, head over to my channel and look for it. There's no footage, that's not allowed. And I don't sneak cameras in to places I'm invited. Maybe invite me to more places is what I'm saying. And a quick shout out to our friends at Giga Buffalo. You guys do great work. I'm sorry you don't show up in the news as much. We do love you. We do appreciate your work. I'm sorry that headlines are harder to come by. But if you're there and you've got news, by all means, get in touch with me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Brian, that's great. I certainly, of course, always appreciate you coming on and trying to cheer me up on Monday mornings.
I do my best, Randy.
All right. And for now, it's been great. And to all of you out there, great talking to you.